I've always wondered, what would happen if Darth Vader met Ahsoka Tano early after his transition to the dark side? Would she be able to get through to Anakin, whom Vader buried deep within? Or would Vader show her no mercy? In this video, we discuss, what if Ahsoka turned Vader back to the light? Let's begin this at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Vader has just completed his transformation and is now more machine than man. He's adjusting to his new prison and is about to begin his training as a Sith. But there's one thing he must do first. He travels to Naboo to attend Padme's funeral. He stands off in the distance, wind blowing his cape to one side. He looks upon the street, where the crowd is moving, and spots his wife. She was as beautiful as ever, but no longer with them. The sight of her corpse almost broke Vader. The sadness and depression he felt was overwhelming, but he stayed strong and fought through it. He had done this to himself, so he must endure it. His eyes stay attached to her until he feels someone through the Force, a familiar presence. She's here. He follows the presence, who's slowly moving away from the crowd, trying to escape. And then he sees her in the distance, his former apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, scurrying away. Vader hides himself and sneaks around in front of Ahsoka's position. He jumps down from above, lightsaber ignited, and swings down on her. She blocks just in time and jumps up to kick Vader in the chest backwards. She gets into attack mode, ready to take on her attacker until she realizes who this is through the Force.
Anakin?
Anakin is gone. I am what remains.
Vader advances towards his apprentice.
What have you become, Anakin? This isn't you. How could you turn to the dark side?
The dark side has freed me from all my pain and suffering, and I will use it to free you too.
They clash blades back and forth, but Ahsoka knows she can get through to him. She continuously brings up Padme's name, hoping this would get through to Anakin, but all she senses is pain and despair. She knows she needs more, and decides to take a gamble.
What about Shmi, your mother Anakin? Didn't she want you to save the galaxy, not destroy it?
Vader stops in his tracks.
My mother?
He hadn't thought about his mother in a long time. What would she be thinking? Would she be proud of the man he's become? Of course not. She'd be disgusted and disappointed.
Come back to the light, Anakin. I won't leave you. Not this time.
Ahsoka's right about everything. What is he doing? He's going against everything his mother and wife wanted him to be. They'd be ashamed of him. He's chosen the easy path, to give in to his emotion, but in turn, disappointed everyone who cares about him. He must change that, and he will.
I am sorry, Ahsoka. I'm so sorry.
Vader drops to his knees.
What have I done?
Ahsoka walks forward and kneels down beside Vader.
It's okay, Anakin, together. We can get through this.
They stay there for a minute or so, until Bail Organa arrives. He asks Ahsoka who she's with, who pauses for a moment, then tells him it's Anakin Skywalker. His eyes go wide in shock. He thought Skywalker was dead, and tells Ahsoka to get away, but she assures him Anakin has come back to the light side. Bail thinks for a moment, can they trust Anakin? But he trusts Ahsoka, and knows what to do. He tells them they need to hurry before the clones arrive, and they go with him. He takes them back to his ship, the Sundered Heart, after picking up Rex, where Yoda and Obi-Wan were watching the funeral, not wanting to get too close, as they knew Palpatine's attention would be fixated on the funeral. Together they walk in, Vader entering last. Yoda and Obi-Wan stand up instantly.
It can't be. Anakin, is that you?
It is me, Obi-Wan.
Vader falls to his knees in front of the Masters.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all of it. What have I done? The Jedi, the younglings, Padme, my child. Oh, could I do this?
Obi-Wan and Yoda know a broken man when they see one, but can also sense he's come back to the light. Obi-Wan goes next to Vader, puts his arm around his shoulder, and Yoda speaks up.
Tempted by the dark side you were, deceived by a master manipulator. False promises, hope, all lies. Committed terrible things you have. The light, however, has not left you fully. Realize my mistakes led to all of this. My fault. The purge is. The blame yours alone, it is not. But together, bring balance to the Force we can.
Together they head back to Polis Massa, where Vader receives upgrades and modifications to his suit. His previous suit kept him in a state of constant pain, but was also archaic and vulnerable. But with new technology, he'd get a better suit that gave him no pain, but also helped to improve his injuries. They head back to Bail's ship again, where Obi-Wan and Yoda show Anakin his children, Luke and Leia. He couldn't believe it when he saw their faces. He thought he'd lost them. He embraced them tightly and feels their mother's warmth in them. He turns to Obi-Wan as he realizes something.
You were there with her at the end. What were her last words?
I know there is good in him. She believed in you, Anakin, and failed her you have not.
Anakin bursts into tears, and Obi-Wan gives him time alone with his children. Some hours later, they all meet to discuss their plan to move forward. They all agree that they have to act soon before Palpatine fully establishes his empire and takes control for himself. They need to attack whilst he's vulnerable. Rex speaks up and mentions the contingency orders that have been ingrained into the inhibitor chips of every clone. He brings up Order 65 and says this will be a risk to the Emperor, and because of this, will limit the use of clones in the future. Ahsoka mentions they could use this to their advantage to somehow bring the clones over to their side, but Obi-Wan says he has a better plan, to force the clones to execute Order 65 whilst they're still in use and arrest the Emperor this way. Ahsoka tells him it's not possible, but Yoda intervenes as he recalls a past conversation with Lama Su, the governor of Kamino. He tells them he knows of a secret base on Kamino, whom the governor told him, and only him, around the beginning of the Clone War, and now he knows why. The Kaminoans knew all along. They knew the clones would be used against the Jedi, but had no choice but to comply. Palpatine must think it's impossible to change the contingency orders, as you'd have to do it at the database on Coruscant, which would be a suicide mission. But if they were to infiltrate the secret database on Kamino, they'd be able to change it, so the clones recognize someone else, maybe Bail Organa, and receive orders from him rather than the Chancellor. They all agree on this plan, and they infiltrate Kamino. Ahsoka, Rex, and Yoda going in and successfully upload the file to the database. All clones around the galaxy pause for a second as the file updates and then go back to normal. They now receive orders from Bail Organa. They now know what to do, and they will take over the Senate. Bail hands the Jedi a list of Palpatine's known loyalists who are powerful in the Senate and must be arrested in the takeover to assure their success. The plan is carried out days later, during a Senate meeting on Coruscant. The Emperor addresses the Senate, detailing orders and changes that will be taking place. However, Organa releases his pod and travels out so that everyone can see him.
You must have a good reason for interrupting me, Senator Organa.
Organa does, and he goes on a speech about how Palpatine is evil and will only cause destruction to the galaxy, and states he will stop his reign by executing Order 65 here and now. Whispers echo throughout the chamber, and Palpatine begins to laugh, but looks around as the clones have acted instantly. They begin firing and rushing towards Palpatine. The Senate is thrust into chaos, and the clones attack from all angles. Palpatine doesn't have time to escape, nor can he. There are simply too many clones. He is forced to ignite his crimson blades in front of the Senate, who are shocked to say the least. He kills many and fries some with lightning. The senators see firsthand what Palpatine really is. The Jedi knew this would be important if they were to seize control. Senators begin to leave and rush out, fearing for their own safety, and now the Jedi would intervene. They rush in from Organa's section and ignite their blades, jumping towards Sidious. The four of them, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Ahsoka, and Anakin, stand around the Emperor, with the clones marching forward behind them. Sidious gives his all in one last effort against the Jedi, but he was only one man, and there were simply too many of them. He'd been outmatched and outclassed. He's struck down and killed by Anakin Skywalker, who enacts his revenge against the man who took everything from him. A couple of hours later, the Senate is called back into session, where Organa, Yoda, and Obi-Wan explains what has transpired. They detail who Palpatine really is, and his goals for the galaxy, and how they were all tricked by his manipulation over the last 10 years. Naboo, the Clone War, everything was him. The Senate is convinced, and Organa emphasizes the role the Jedi played in this, and the Republic could not have been saved without them. An election is held later on, and due to his role in recent events, Organa is elected as the Chancellor of the Republic. Palpatine's loyalists were successfully arrested during Order 65 and trialed for treason against the Republic. Yoda and Obi-Wan take over the Jedi Temple and send out another message to whatever remaining Jedi are left, telling them of the Emperor's defeat and to return to Coruscant. Some came initially, but many were skeptical and took longer, but they were surprised at how little were left. Only 200 remained from their once 10,000. They decided to keep Anakin's role in Order 66 a secret, with none of the survivors being in the Jedi Temple at the time of the Purge, and say his injuries were sustained during Order 66. Yoda sits in the council chambers one day with Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Anakin, and reads a message from the Chosen One prophecy to them.
Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the Nameless.
He explains how he thought this would be the Clone War, but it actually represents everything Anakin has done. Only through the death of countless Jedi in the Purge has the Order been able to change its ways. Nothing else could do this. He was the Chosen One. The Jedi had become too powerful for their own good, too righteous, and lost their way. Even Yoda had become corrupt, but now, he's seen the error of his ways, and will change the principles of the Jedi Order to that of the Jedi of the past. He tells Anakin, all is forgiven. It was the will of the Force to do what he's done, and he's completed his role as the Chosen One. He offers for Anakin to rejoin the Order, who declines this offer. He tells Yoda that he's right, his job is finished, but so is his life as a Jedi, and in the Force. It's only ever brought him pain, and he must walk a different path. He leaves with his children, Luke and Leia, and moves to the countryside of Naboo, accompanied by Ahsoka, the woman who saved him, and lives the life Padme would have wanted. If you enjoyed this video, you have to watch What If Thrawn joined the Republic, or What If Darth Vader saved Anakin with time travel. Consider becoming a member of the channel, and please let me know what you thought of the video in the comments, and may the Force be with you.